How did you meet the love of your life? I met the love of my life in art appreciation class back in college. We were both 18 years old. We noticed each other from across the auditorium. He started sitting right behind me. Eventually, after talking in class for a while, we went for a walk at the mall. It happened to be Halloween, so everybody was in costumes except for us. Very magical and surreal, now that I think about it. We ended up talking in the parking lot for hours. I asked him if he would get in trouble with his parents for being out so late. He nonchalantly said, "Nah." Well, 14 years, 2 kids, and a house later, he confessed that his mom called the police and reported him missing because it was 2 a.m. and he wasn't home yet. Good times. She fell into my lap at a Christmas party. Literally. I was sitting on a couch, she came in, tripped over something, and landed on my lap. Not sure what was said after that, but we had a date 2 weeks later, got married 6 months later, and had 38 wonderful years, until she died last year. I went to a bar with a friend. She had been telling me that she had someone she wanted me to meet. As I was walking in the door, he poked his head out. First time in my life that I fell instantly in love. 12 years together. Then in 2012, he died from a massive heart attack. He knew something was wrong. As he was leaving for work, he turned back, wrapped himself around me and said, "You know I love you, girl, right? You know I love you." 8 minutes later, he was gone. "I still love you mostest. I'm doing okay. I smile again, but I still miss you." It was my first day working on my very first movie set. I was the on-set costumer. Basically anything to do with actors' clothing was my job. It was a kids' movie, so obviously there were a lot of kid actors running around. As I walked to set for the first time from the trailers, one of the kids pointed to a man I had never met and said to me, "That guy loves you," loud enough for both of us to hear. I was mortified. But I looked at him and smiled and said, "Apparently you love me," he said. "I guess I do." We celebrate our 16th wedding anniversary in August. She was in a controlling, abusive relationship, absolutely terrified of leaving a monster out of fear. One day, things were pretty bad for me. I don't normally do this, but I went to church on Sunday, April 3, 2011. Didn't know anyone, so I sat in the back. Saw a beautiful girl sitting alone. Apparently, this was her first time going to church as well in search of some sort of escape. It took a few weeks to muster up the courage to approach her. And when I finally did, we immediately clicked and started to become very close very fast. We both expressed that church wasn't really our thing, and we were in a sort of crisis and decided to spend time together. Our first official time hanging out, I figured out she sung beautifully. I am a musician. Of course, we immediately left our activity and went to play the piano and sing at the music school I worked at. From that moment on, things took a drastic turn. I fell in love. Nowadays, we have a little music duo and tour all over Northern California playing local shows. I get to do what I love, with the love of my life, and I couldn't ask for anything else in the world. I was hiking up the mountain with a group of friends, 3 males to 3 females, so even ratio. He was hiking alone with his Saint Bernard. My Great Pyrenees wasn't with me because she was too old for that difficult of a hike, but seeing as I am a fellow big dog lover and owner, I ran up to pet his dog. I said, "He's still a puppy, isn't he?" He responded, "Yeah, how do you know that?" I said, "His hips are still taller than his shoulders." Small talk, and then we part ways to continue our climbs. He continues down, we continue up. My friend asks me why I didn't ask him out. About 5 minutes later, I turn around and race after him. I somehow catch him and gracefully suggest a dog date, if he doesn't have a stitch, of course. He immediately says yes and asks for my number. Every year we spend our anniversary on the same hike. A mutual friend set us up after we were both just out of relationships that summer. We were 17. We hadn't a clue what to say to each other when we met, but it just worked. And it was wonderful. We talked about everything and anything, and we quickly fell in love. We talked to each other every day, and I trusted her with everything. She trusted me with everything. She was my world. I love her more and more every day. We spent 2 amazing years together. 2 amazing years I'd truly give anything to go back to. We made the world okay for each other. She passed away just over a year ago in a car accident. No one was to blame for it, but she's gone now. My life with her and the people we're involved disappeared and don't seem to be interested in my well-being at all, except for the wonderful person who set us up. She's been an amazing friend, but the love of my life died, and my life feels so empty without her. I know I'll find love again, someday, and that too will be wonderful, but the love of my life will always be her, because she was there for me when I needed it most, and it took death to take her from me. Wherever I go, I'm taking her with me in spirit. While traveling in Europe, I met a female version of myself in a bar. She was also American, but she was from the Midwest and I was from the East Coast. It was nice to hear another American voice, and the more we talked, the more we realized we liked all the same things. We became traveling buddies and decided to have a summer fling, but it quickly became much more than that. As our time together came close to ending, we had a choice to make, and we both made the same one. I had recently sworn off long-distance relationships, but I knew that if I did not stay in touch with this girl, I would always wonder what might have been. We dated long-distance for the rest of college, seeing each other a couple times a year, relocated to the same city after graduating, and did the only thing you can do when 2 people start so similar. We grew apart. No hard feelings or drama, we just both realized it was done and we needed to move on. I'm with another woman now in a relationship I recognize is much stronger than my fling, but I still think about it, and as is natural, I wonder what might have been if we had been 10 years older instead of young and idealistic college students. I was 5 years old when an older guy offered to teach me how to surf. I was hooked and I found a surfboard in the trash and he offered to fix it for me over the winter. Flash forward some time and my parents separated and I took it pretty hard. Bill, who taught me to surf, and his wife took me in basically, spent holidays with them and traveled to visit them a ton. Summer before college I met their niece and we hit it off and we spent the whole day we were together hanging out, and then we went off to college, didn't speak for a whole year. Next summer we met again, hit it off really well and spent the whole summer being goofy kids, summer love thing. Fall comes around and I go off to college 2 hours from her. We keep driving to see each other all the time. Flash forward 6 years and we are married. I still stay in touch with her uncle and surf all the time. Learning to surf as a little kid and a summer crush ended up with us getting married many years later. I don't have some uber romantic story about how I met my husband. The only remarkable thing about it is that we lived a block away from each other for 6 years. My sister and her then boyfriend both knew him, and we never bumped into each other. So one day my sister was going bowling with some friends and asked if I wanted to come along. I was just coming off a terrible bronchial infection and had lost some weight, so I was rail thin, and I went with her without changing into decent clothes or wearing any makeup. He was there, and that's how we met. He told me later he thought I was cute, so I guess he really liked my real self, since there's no way I looked cute that day. That was in 1999. And here we are. Smiley face. While at a party with my ex, I was walking from the living room to the kitchen and she fell down the stairs and landed on top of me. We became instant friends and grew closer over the following year. Then one day we randomly bumped into each other at the city hall. She had missed her bus, so I canceled my plans for the day and waited with her. She told me she used to have a major crush on me but couldn't do anything because I was in a relationship. That night I went home and couldn't stop thinking about her. Eventually I split with my then special someone and we got together. We have had many a rocky patch, but 5 years later we are still together and going strong. This is some anime shit right here. He was friends with my brother, and I was a tag-along who joined them and another guy on a road trip to San Diego for Comic-Con. The first time he talked to me, we were sitting in front of my brother's condo and he offered me a fry as we waited for my brother to plan the trip. Not long later, we went to a concert with my brother, the New Pornographers if anyone is curious, and while I went to the bathroom and my brother and their friend ran off to find people, leaving him politely waiting for me outside the bathroom. He stood by me for the whole concert, and we may have said one or two things to each other the whole night. He calls this our unofficial first date. Skip forward to the road trip, and he barely says anything to me for the first 3 days. When we get to Vegas, he starts talking to me more because my brother has sore feet and doesn't want to do much. At some point, he asked me if I'd like to go see Shrek 4 with him because no one wanted to go with him. Wasn't sure if he was asking me out or not. He claims he wasn't. By the time we got to San Diego, we were chatting a lot, but still not sure if it was friendship or something more. On our last day there, we went for a long walk and he bought me a beer, and then we went to the zoo where he bought me more beer. In a drunken stumble while trying to be sneaky, we held each other's hands and have been together ever since. That was 6 years ago. We got married 2.5 years ago, and I'm currently cuddling our 6-month-old daughter. I had just broken up with a long-term boyfriend in high school, and one of my male friends pestered me for days to get out of the house and hang out with him. For days I said no, but finally agreed when he asked me to go to this house party. I clarified repeatedly we were going as just friends. Just friends. We get to the party as it's dying down. The host is there and is just gone. I've never met someone I was more repulsed by in my life. I get up and walk across the room to get away from my increasingly clingy friend, and the host stops me and kisses my hand. I look annoyed. He knows I'm annoyed, and he apologizes and tells me that he's sorry, but I'm just so beautiful that he had to. What would it take for me to be able to kiss you again? Me trying to get him to go away. If you let me kick you in the nuts, how about that? And he agreed, quickly takes my hand and kisses it, and I nail him in the goods. It was just so ridiculous I couldn't help but laugh. We've been together for nearly 11 years now. Freshman year of high school, she took my seat the second day of class. The seat was near my friend's, so I asked if I could sit there. She pointed to the opposite side of the room and said, "There's a seat over there," and smiled. Now, this girl was just gorgeous, so I didn't argue. We ended up hitting it off and becoming really good friends. Then we ended up dating, and now we're happily engaged to be married in September. She's also very supportive of my military career and has always been very smart. Definitely a lucky catch. I made an account just to post this because my story is something that would put Lifetime to shame. The reason I have the love of my life is all thanks to his dog. We lived in the same apartment complex, so it's possible we might have ran into each other at some point, but everything about how we met was almost like a Nicholas Sparks novel. I was coming back from the pool when all of a sudden this beautiful husky just starts running at me. Now, if you know anything about me, I fucking love huskies. They are my favorite dog breed of all time. Well, I start trying to get this dog to come over to me since it has no leash. I'm afraid it might run into the street. Then, as soon as I'm about to grab him, this guy just starts booking it towards me and tackles this dog. When the guy starts to get up, the first thing I notice is he looks like the Greek god Apollo, and I know this guy can't be single. I introduce myself and he does the same, thanking me for helping get his Balto, which just freaks me out because it's the exact name I had planned for when I get a husky. Well, we talked a little bit more, and then he says he has to go because he has a vet appointment. While walking, I noticed our apartments are exactly the opposite from each other. The next few days, I'm glued to my back door looking to see if he might be walking back. Every time I see him, I run out my door making sure I'm always looking as on fleek, did I use that right, as possible. What I then learned from this conversation is that he went along to my favorite band's concert the other day because no one would go with him, and I missed the concert because I couldn't find anyone to go with me. We both love Doctor Who, and the book I was reading when coming back from the pool is his favorite book and movie of all time. So after days of stalking him out my window, he finally asks me out. I knew that he was meant for me when he was waving goodbye and fell into his back door that was enclosed all the way at the end of the night. 3 years later, he's sitting across the couch from me Redditing.